Better Homes and Gardens contacted me one day, and the editor, his name at the time was David Jordan. He had called, and he wanted to feature me on the editor's page. Now, I don't know if you know this, but the editor's page is the #1 page read in a magazine. That's pretty amazing. I mean, who could afford that kind of advertising? I certainly couldn't. So I would do this as long as he didn't mention my homeless life. I was still ashamed of my life, and I really felt that the pens needed to stand on their own merit. This wasn't about me. This was about the homeless. Well, he agreed to do it. He wasn't happy about it, but he agreed. And what he wanted to do was he wanted to sell these pens through the magazine as a Mother's Day promotion. And how it would work was the reader would call an 800 number to order a house pen. Better Homes and Gardens Fulfillment Center would send a pen to the caller's mother with a card saying that the house pen was a Mother's Day gift from your daughter, and all the proceeds were going to go to help the Better Homes Family Foundation, which was helping homeless mothers. It was brilliant. They wanted 4,000 pens. This was huge. They said they were going to sell the pens for $20. Well, this would be my first test. Up until this point, I had rules. They were rules my customers had to follow in order to buy my pens. First, they had to submit an order form to me with order information that told me who the nonprofit was that was helping the homeless, and they had to agree to sell the pens for no more than $10. Now, I would call the nonprofit, and I'd verify that the seller actually had a relationship with this nonprofit. Now, as far as the $10 price point goes, it might have been illegal. I'm really not sure. But what I did know was this. If people were going to be selling these pens for higher than that price, or offering them as a $100 as a premium for a $100 a plate fundraiser, I wasn't going to be staying in business long selling a few thousand pens. I needed to sell volume. I would educate every customer about my philosophy. The price was in place so that almost everybody could afford them, creating more pens on more lapels, creating more awareness for the issue of homelessness and for their nonprofit. And by sticking to these rules, I created two things. I created demand by saying no. I used to really say this. Designs by Lucinda, where it's a privilege to be my customer. At the same time, I was creating the Lucinda brand, a company that was credible and had social responsibility. People respected my intentions. Here I was helping nonprofits becoming recognized in their communities with pens as they sprouted up on lapels everywhere and conversations were being had. It was definitely a win-win situation. And that's when I came to realize I wasn't even selling pens at all. I was selling relationships. So Better Homes and Gardens I agreed to send them the 4,000 pens. And that night I went home and I was sick to my stomach. I had just betrayed all my customers. How would I ever explain to them when they read the Better Homes and Gardens magazine that the pens were $20? So the next day I would call Better Homes and Gardens and I would apologize for my unprofessional decision. And I explained to them what it meant to me and what it would mean to my customers if I were to agree to their selling price. And as hard as it was to turn down a 4,000 pen order, I knew that house pens were bigger than Better Homes and Gardens. But they convinced me. They had other costs to incur that other nonprofits didn't, like shipping and handling. So we finally would decide and agree that if they advertised the price of $15 and stated that that included shipping and handling, I could agree to that, I could explain that to my customers, and maintain loyalty. So they ordered 4,000 pens. The magazine dropped. Within days, I got a call from them. We need 1,000 more pens. 2 days later, they needed 1,000 more. 3 days later, they needed another 1,000 pens. Now, I promised them 4,000, not 6, not 7, no more than that. Well, I finally would get another phone call, and it would be from David Jordan, the editor. And he wanted to wring my neck this time. He was crazy. He said that people were calling his office trying to order pens. He told me they had to install 8 more phone lines to take calls. House pens were the most successful item they had ever had in their magazine. In the end, I shipped them 22,000 pens for Mother's Day. And what I learned? Don't compromise your principles for sales. Well, finding work for me, like I told you, was nearly impossible. So I created my own income stream. And I did this by learning the craft of American Indian beading. And I learned it from homeless women. And I started creating jewelry. What I liked about this was that supplies were inexpensive. I'm talking pennies here. They didn't weigh much, and that was great because I carried everything I owned on my back, and they had a high return on material investment. But here was the problem. The market was slight for traditional American Indian beading jewelry. And my favorite marketplace was a shopping district in downtown Santa Cruz. It hosted mothers with strollers and window shopping women. I imagined that they were stay-at-home moms, and really I could only dream about that. But I knew that in order to capture this market, I needed to appeal to their tastes. So, I think in business we call that marketing, and I added small crystals to my works. Product differentiation? No one else was doing this. Adding value? There I would throw my small scrap of black velvet onto the ground, and I'd lay out my wares. The sunlight would sparkle off the crystals and catch the eye of the passers-by. I truly think they couldn't help but look. And while the homeless were selling and trading amongst themselves, I was breaking into a new market. A little glitz goes a long way. And I learned from that, you don't have to be the best, but you do have to be the first. I had become an entrepreneur. But here I am at this realtor convention in Las Vegas. But I don't bring with me this time 100 pens like Rebecca did. I bring 1,500 pens. I set up shop at the exhibit hall. 22,000 realtors swarm the place over 3 days. 70% of them are women. Try to imagine 14,000 women in the same place at the same time. Kind of like imagine the lines at the restroom of a sold-out Broncos game. I swear to you, I didn't pee for 3 days. Well, my booth was mobbed the entire time. Women were backed up 4 and 5 deep trying to get to these pens. And while I have an audience of 30 at a time out there, I'm selling pens faster than I can believe, and at the same time, I'm pitching these women that you can go home and use these for a fundraiser in your own community and order 50 at a time. These women are literally throwing $10 bills on my table and saying, I took a pen, and leaving. I can't take their money fast enough, and I'm putting it under the table into a bag. I calculated the number of hours I was there at that exhibit hall and the number of pens that were sold, and I was selling a pen a minute. And at one point, I happened to look up, and there was a woman standing there, and we all wear our badges at these things, and it said press. Well, you know I know PR is free and powerful. And it says Kiplinger's Magazine, Elizabeth Ross. I don't know what Kiplinger's Magazine is, but I know press. It's got to be good. And I didn't have time to say anything, so what I did was I handed her my business card, and the only thing I said to her was, if you ever need a good story, call me. Well, when all was said and done at that convention, I walked out of Las Vegas. I had 0 pins, and I had $15,000 in cash in a paper bag. And I knew right then it was going to be easier to make $1 million than to win it.